The Rough Riders. A mini-series that came out in 1997 focuses on a section of American history not a lot of people know about. I was fortunate enough to be introduced to this series by my dad and have come to love it ever since. What's up everybody, I'm Cam Critic and let's go ahead and talk about The Rough Riders. Now, some people who have seen this have said that it's a story about the Spanish-American War, but I think that's just a small part of the story. The main focus of the miniseries is telling the story of the 1st Volunteer Cavalry Regiment. We get to see the talks about the regiment being formed, the regiment going through training, to their participation in the Battle of San Juan Hill. Now, since this is a mini-series based on actual history, we have to ask ourselves the question, how accurate is it to the real history? Well, the good news is that it's actually pretty accurate to the true history. Events that played out are correct, the people involved are correct, and even some of the smaller details are clearly given attention. For example, the 1st Volunteer Regiment was actually a very diverse regiment. Made up of cowboys, Native Americans, and Ivy League people. The miniseries makes sure that all three get plenty of screen time and recognition. They also got people's personalities from that time period down as well. Theodore Roosevelt was very eccentric in real life and they represent it well here. General Wheeler was always the Southern lover that he was in the Civil War and they maintain that here as well. I also like that they give recognition to the deadly diseases that plague the men, such as malaria and yellow fever, or as they call it in the movie, Yellow Jack. Both diseases are caused by mosquito bites, and while they're not deadly today because of all the medicines we have, back then they were very deadly. In fact, more men got sick and died from these diseases than the amount of men that actually died in combat. And I really like the fact that they gave the Buffalo Soldiers as much screen time as they did. They're not the main focus of the miniseries, but they still make sure that the audience is well aware that they were there and that they were important. The Buffalo Soldiers were one of the first all-black elite units to be in the US military post-Civil War. They were very active in the American West and in the Spanish-American War, but sadly they are mostly forgotten today. So I'm glad that this miniseries made sure that they got recognized. So this movie overall does a really good job of staying true to the history, however though, it's not perfect. The biggest inaccuracy to me is the character named Henry Nash. In the series he's portrayed as an outlaw who joins a regiment because he's on the run from the law. And it also portrays that Bucky O'Neill and him didn't get along and that Bucky O'Neill really disliked him. In truth, neither of these things are true. The real Henry Nash was actually a school teacher who joined the regiment because Bucky O'Neill was in it. And in truth, Bucky O'Neill and Nash were actually pretty good friends and didn't have a rivalry. Now, Nash's character is based on an actual outlaw who joined the regiment named William Sterren. Bucky O'Neill had actually caught him and shortly thereafter he was pardoned. Then he would go on to join the Rough Riders. So this raises the question, why not just call the outlaw character by his actual name as recorded in history? Or, why not get Henry Nash correct? It just seems like such a strange creative liberty to me, because the series would have been fine if they stayed true to the history. The series could still have its outlaw character and it would be just as entertaining. So it seems unnecessary to me because it wouldn't have impacted the story either way if they stayed true to the history. There is also another inaccuracy with a character named Edward Marshall who got wounded at San Juan Hill. Now, there actually was a guy named Edward Marshall who was a field reporter and he did get wounded at the Battle of San Juan Hill. However, in the series he gets wounded from an artillery shell when in real life he got wounded from the bullet of a Spanish Mauser. I know it seems like a nitpick, but the rest of the series does a great job of showing how painful a bullet wound really is. So I don't understand why they felt like they had to take creative liberties here when they proved they didn't need to otherwise. They also get some of the formations and unit placements incorrect, but those are real nitpicks, they're not worth getting into too much about. Aside from that, they did a pretty good job. The weapons are accurate, the uniforms are accurate, and even the people and events that took place are pretty accurate. So overall, job well done. Now let's take a look at the production. One of the things I really like about this miniseries is the fact that they try to make it look very authentic. The set designs represent the time period very well as the general environment that they were fighting in. The series was actually filmed in Texas, but you can tell that they took a lot to make it look like they were in Cuba. I also really like their use of practical effects. Every gunshot, every cannon shot, they do everything they can to make it look like it's real. From the smoke from the cannons to the explosions from where they hit, it all looks like you're actually seeing a real battle happening. This also goes for all the soldiers you see as well. Every soldier you see on screen is an actual real person that was really there, and that really adds to the authenticity factor. The cinematography is also worth noting as well. There's a lot of great movement and great establishing shots that really give you the scope of what's going on. While it may be moving faster for the action sequences, it knows when to slow down for the more dramatic and somber scenes. So in all honesty, when it comes to the production and making of this series, I honestly have nothing to complain about. Not only does it look good, but it actually represents a history very well from a visual perspective, and that's what I like to see in a production like this. So they did a good job with the production. Now let's take a look at the score. Now this soundtrack is made up of two themes, Western and war music. And you know what? The two actually complement each other pretty well. Now when they're training in the US, we get more Western music with hints of war music throughout. And when they're fighting in Cuba, it's the other way around, with war music with hints of Western. The music is arranged really well and works perfectly for each scene that a song is played in. I also really enjoy listening to these songs on their own. It's some great orchestra music with remnants of great war and Western movies. I'm talking about movies like The Magnificent Seven, Gettysburg, and pick a number of John Wayne movies. Now, am I saying that this soundtrack is as good as those movies are? No. While this soundtrack is good and I do enjoy listening to it, it doesn't have any standout songs like those other movies do. It doesn't have anything that's big and epic sounding like the Magnificent Seven theme. There are also a couple songs that do get a little repetitive at times. Having said that, I still enjoy this soundtrack a lot and I do recommend you listen to it. Rough Riders is a lot of fun and it sheds light on an aspect of American history not a lot of people know about. And the fact that they do so much to match the look of the time period and look as authentic as possible too, I really appreciate. There are historical inaccuracies in it, but it's not enough to kill the entire series for me. And the music really complements the visuals. If you're into historical movies, war movies, or even westerns, I would recommend this for you. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. Give it a thumbs up if you liked it and comment below, let me know what you think of this series. And if you would like to see more, don't forget to subscribe. Be sure to hit the bell to get notifications. Also, if you would like to support the channel and help it grow, you can donate through Patreon or PayPal. Links to both will be in the description below. Again, thank you guys so much. Have a nice day.